Welcome to the Bag Maker's Workroom. I am Chris with Simply Classic, and today is Thursday, February 19th, 2026. Thank you so much for joining us. We go live every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can't join live, watch the recording on YouTube at any time. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when I post a new video or when we go live. And today is actually a pre-recorded episode because on Thursday I will be in Arizona taking a leather workshop with my sister-in-law. So I'm really excited to tell you about that next week. Hopefully, I'm going to be the student, so hopefully I get to learn some things that I can further pass on to you. But for now, my team members, Shauna and Taylor, are here live in the chat. They'll be happy to answer any questions you have today. If there's anything I can't answer, of course, we'll cover it in next week's episode. So today's a sewing episode, and we're going to start by going over what's new in the Simply Classic Scoop. I'm going to show you a hack for the Simply Classic Clutch. We're going to feature our customers' bags and Artistry Avenue. And finally, I'll announce our weekly pattern giveaway. So before we get started, please take a second to click the thumbs up button. It really does make a difference, and I do really appreciate it. So now it's time for the Simply Classic Scoop, and this is where I tell you what's new here at Simply Classic. So last week, I told you a little bit about my trip to Ohio, and now I want to share some photos. It was at Pins and Needles, a wonderful shop in Cleveland, Ohio. They were absolutely fabulous hosts. I met the Pins and Needles team at BU last year, and they asked me to come teach some workshops in their store. So Pins and Needles, again, they were just fabulous hosts. They had a wonderful lunch. They have a huge location. Oh my gosh, it was amazing how large it is. All kinds of neat stuff in there, and I'm sure if you live in the area, you have visited them before. They had a great Simply Classic section. You probably saw a short video I posted on that. But the staff was just amazing. The store is amazing. We really loved it. And they've asked me to come back later in the year. So hopefully we can get back out there before the end of 2026. So these are the students who took the Fairhaven workshop. They all completed their bags in one day. Isn't that impressive? All of the kits are pre-made for them, so basically pre-cut, pre-interfaced, pre-stabilized. And if you ever take any of my workshops, you know how we do our kits. They're very good. They're very complete. All the hardware is included. We really try hard to make our kits superior and ready to sew as soon as you get going, because I mean, let's face it, that's what we're there to do, is to sew. So a few of the students even posted their finished bags in the Facebook group. And I'm sorry if I missed anyone. We are recording this a little early, and these are photos that we've seen so far. So Charisse on the right did something a little different with her Simply Classic clutch. And isn't it pretty? I had a little rogue section in the class where they were kind of going off on doing their own thing. And of course I was teasing them about it, but I love it. I love it when you guys do different things. And Charisse and a few of the other students did that, and it just turned out fantastic. So thank you to all the students who posted the bags. I loved everyone. Everybody, again, we had a great class. We had like 24 people in the class, and it was just, can't say enough good things about it. So I also want to let you know that the Sack Bag and Sew tickets went on sale last weekend, and classes are really filling up fast. These are workshops and classes that I'll be teaching this year. So for those of you who don't know, Sack Bag and Sew is a bag making expo in Sacramento, California. This is going to be my second year. Last year was amazing, and I'm really looking forward to returning this year. Next, I want to remind you about our February sew-along. We're calling it the Double Stitch because I'm teaming up with another bag maker, Shanova Mabry from That's Sew Nova, to bring you two different takes on one Simply Classic pattern. I asked Nova to hack the Simply Classic clutch pattern in her own unique style. I didn't even make a suggestion. And you can see here she made this beautiful fringed hip bag that you see on the right. And then I made the one on the left. It's a completely different look. But we use the same pattern. So today I'm going to be showing you part of the process for making my version. But if you want to sew along with me and learn how to make Shanova's version, then you can join our live sew along next Wednesday, February 25th. So Shanova and I will both be there. It'll be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 10 a.m. Pacific time on Zoom. So you can turn your camera off if you'd like. You can sew with us. You don't have to sew with us. However you'd like to participate, we'd love to have you. When you register, you'll get instructions for what to prep ahead of time, and then we'll all meet and sew together next week. So the link to register for that is down below. So I talked to Nova this week about her bag and the inspiration behind it. And I'm going to play that clip for you now, and let's take a look at what Nova did. Well, I'm here, everybody, with Shanova Mabry, and I'm sure most of you know Nova. She is the owner of That So Nova. She obviously has a wonderful YouTube channel that I encourage you all to go ahead and subscribe to if you haven't done so yet, but I know a lot of you already know her. And so we decided that we were going to take a pattern, which we decided on a Simply Classic clutch, and she was going to hack it her way, and I was going to hack it my way. So you are going to see my way here in just a minute. I'm going to walk you through the stitching steps of it, but I want to take a minute so Nova could go ahead and introduce her bag, tell you the kind of changes she's made, and that way when you join us for the sew along next Wednesday, which is the 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern time, you can go ahead and make either bag or make your own, doesn't matter. So go ahead, Nova, take it away. Let's see your bag.
First of all, I really wanted to keep the clutch aspect to it because the clutch is so classic. But what I've been seeing a lot on the runways lately is fringe. With like Coachella season, Wine in the Woods, and a lot of spring events, it makes me think of fringe. And I feel like a lot of us are afraid to cut and do our own fringe. And I wanted to show that it can be really fun and easy to do. This fringe is the same faux leather that I used on the bag, and it's really simple. And I have a really fast and fun hack on how we can put it together in the binding and how close we can get a nice cut so it looks like it's coming really close out of the bag. And I wanted to keep the classic clutch hand so we can just wear it as is if we're still going on a nice date night. The beautiful thing about the clutch is it is a clutch. What I wanted to add differently was these gate rings. So what I wanted to do was have something that can come off on and on. And with the O-rings, you can screw on connectors, or you can screw them on directly to your pants, whatever is easier for you. You can connect these to the connectors, which can connect to your belt loop, and you can wear this on your favorite pair of jeans. And now you have a really cute little fanny pack that's hands-free and you're good to go. Or you can connect it to a metal chain or a nice crossbody strap, or you can wear it as a fanny pack or a sling, your choice. But then it becomes kind of like a universal bag where you can wear it multiple different ways, as well as you can still keep it as a clutch. And then these become removable. So when you want to wear it as a clutch, you could take them off. Two easy modifications, fringe and connectors. And I wanted the connectors to kind of come in, not like bulk on. So it's kind of at a side slant, if you can see.
I
So
absolutely love that. I don't think I've ever would have thought of that. I love that because you're right, it does take the bulk out.
and it's not too heavy. And I'm a firm believer, just because your machine gets so over bulk, it doesn't mean it should.
Okay, yep.
So, like it, I'm not big on bulk, so I like the way it looks. And this is a very easy project. This only needs like an 8 by 13 piece, and then you need I think 2 inches by 3.5 or 2 inches by 4, and a small scrap piece of whatever interface you have, whether it's woven interface, Decaville light, whatever scrap you have. I'm a scrappy interfacer, and that's it. Nothing major. And then connectors, whether it's gate rings or your O-rings, which
Right.
I have never seen screw-in O-rings, so I might need a link to that because I've never seen that. It's something short, sweet, and simple, and I think will be a great gift, or a gift to yourself. My 20-year-old wants this one.
Yeah, I'll bet she does. Oh my gosh. Now, do you cut and oh, I know I'll find out during the sew along, but do you cut the fringe ahead of time or after?
So I cut the fringe partially ahead of time, and then when we're finished and complete, I cut the rest.
Ah, okay,
So
okay.
that way I can get as close as I possibly can
Yes.
without actually running the risk of actually catching one into the seam. I've done that way too many times.
We learn from our mistakes, don't we?
But I also cut this at a slight angle as a V so that it can have some kind of depth. So it can also be, it can give it a little bit of dimension. You can make it longer or
Sure.
shorter. My other daughter wants it longer. So it's your choice. But if you don't want to cut, you'll be surprised that like Amazon, a lot of fabric stores sell fringe by the yard or fringe by the half a yard as well. So that can be an option as well.
Very
But they're
nice.
half-inch pieces, so it's not that hard. As long as you have a fresh rotary blade, you're good. You're
That's always
good.
key. Yes. We're going to remind you that the sew along again is or excuse me, not November. It is the 25th of February at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. There is a link to go ahead and purchase the sew along. When you purchase the sew along, you're going to get the pattern. You're going to get a list of some things you need to prep ahead of time before you actually get onto the sew along. And you're also going to get a link to the Zoom. Once it's over, we're going to send everybody a recording of it so you go back and watch it at any time. Last time we had some people that didn't actually sew with us, they watched and then they just went back and got all the good ideas and then made their Jamila wallet. So it was really a fun thing. And thank you so much, Noah, for joining me today. And we
Thank
look
you.
forward to sewing with you next week.
I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you for having me.
So now it's time to sew. I'm going to show you how I turn the Simply Classic Clutch pattern into this bag right here. Actually, I did two bags. I did a faux leather version and I did a real leather version. And I did do some subtle differences. So we're going to make this version here. It is inspired by a Dior bag. And it is, not exactly identical, but it was definitely inspired by the bag. And what inspired me the most was how to do this kind of knotted detail here in the front. We'll take a little bit closer look at the bag in just a second, but first let's sew and then we'll come back and take a look at the bag. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is make a couple of pattern changes to change the configuration of this piece. So this is the main body piece of the Simply Classic Clutch, and you can see that it is got some curved edges here at the bottom. We are going to change this up and give this bag a little bit of depth. And we also want to change some of the height and width measurements. Now, because this bag has got curved corners here and here, anything we change to the width, we're going to have to cut the piece in half and add to the center so we maintain the curves. For the height, we can just add on to the top. Now we are going to straighten these curves, okay? So this is going to be a little bit of an unusual situation because we can actually just add to the width and the height because we're straightening these curves. If we weren't straightening them, that's when you're going to have to cut it down the center. So if I just wanted to make the clutch larger, I would just, like I just said, cut it down the center, add 2 inches, 3 inches, whatever you want to the center of this to maintain these curves. That's not our case this time. So I'm going to start out by grabbing another piece of paper. And to this, I'm going to add to the height and the width. So I'm going to just go ahead and tape this piece of paper. It doesn't really matter where. I'm just going to go ahead and line it up with one of these edges and put a piece of tape across. Okay, so now to the height of this piece, we're adding 6.5 inches. So I'm just going to take the ruler, 6.5. I'm actually going to use 2 rulers. I have a 6-inch ruler here. So what I'm doing is lining up my 1/2-inch line on this ruler with the top of the bag, and this is my 6-inch ruler. So I'm just going to butt that up against it and then cut. So this is the new height of this bag. Take another piece of paper and we're going to add, we might need 2 pieces of paper for this one. We're going to add 4 inches to the width. So You just kind of see 4 inches is going to be right about there. So let me add a second piece of paper here. I'm going to cut this piece in half. We don't need the whole thing. Slide it in underneath and go ahead and tape all of this together. Okay, so to the width, and I'm measuring from this edge right here, I'm going to add 4 inches. And again, as I mentioned, we're straightening these curves. So I'm just going to go straight, and then from this bottom, I'm going to cut straight. And now I have a nice straight edge over here. Want to do the same thing here, so I'm just going to tape another piece of paper, line it up with the edge, put some tape on there, and go ahead and cut that nice and straight. Okay, so this is the new, let me put a piece of paper or tape back here so I don't lose this edge. Okay, this is the new pattern piece. Now, the other thing we need to do is to cut 1.5 inch boxes from each corner. So I'm going to just mark those with a pen. And then I will cut those out. Now the top of this bag folds over itself, so we're actually going to have quite a bit of extra here at the top that's actually going to fold to the inside. It's a little bit different way of constructing the bag. Okay, so this is now our new main exterior piece. So let's move on to the lining, and the lining is going to be a lot different measurements. Now for this piece, we're going to subtract 1 inch from the top. So 1 inch from the height is coming off. So I'm just going to line my ruler up with the top and cut off 1 inch. Okay, and this is actually for the lining. And then I'm going to take another piece of paper, we're going to tape it on, and we are just like the other one, we're going to add 4 inches to the width. Okay, so 4 inches to the width, and just like the other piece, we want to straighten these edges. So I'm going to add a little bit here, and that will straighten that edge right there for me. Okay, so this is the lining. This is our new lining piece. So I'm just going to write on here, lining. And just like the main part of the bag, we need to go ahead and mark our 1.5 inch boxes. And we're going to cut those out. Okay, so that's our lining. And you can see how different our lining and our main body is here. And again, the reason why is because we are going to be folding the top part of this bag over quite a bit to get that slouch and to get that kind of pleat at the top. So last thing we need to do is the stabilizer. Now the stabilizer piece, you want to cut on your stabilizer line. So on the piece itself, you see that you've got a main part and then you have the stabilizer part. Cut on the lines of the stabilizer. And then from there, again, we are going to add 4 inches to the width. And we're only going to add a 1/2 inch to the height. we're going to box our or cut boxes for our corners. So I'm just going to tape this piece right in the corner of a new piece of paper. I'm going to line it up with my ruler and add a 1/2 inch to the height. And sometimes it's a little hard for me to see where the top of this is when I'm taping white to white. So I'm just going to draw that in so I can see where it is. So add a 1/2 inch to the height. And we're going to add 4 inches to the width. I didn't quite have enough paper here. Let's see. That should give me enough. So 4 inches to the width. And then of course we're going to straighten all of these edges up. And we're going to once again draw in and cut 1.5 inch boxes at the bottom of each corner. Okay, so you can see these pattern changes, they're not difficult. It's just a matter of knowing kind of what to do, how much to add to lengths and widths, and what to do to change this up. And of course, you see that when we're done with this, this is actually going to be like a boxed bottom bag, essentially. Okay, so this is going to end up being our stabilizer. Okay, so we have the stabilizer, which you can see is slightly different than the lining, okay, just a little bit. And then we have the main part of the bag, which of course is much larger than the rest. So from my main fabric, I'm going to cut 2 of these. From my stabilizer, I'm going to cut 2, and from my lining, I'm going to cut 2 pieces. Okay, so I have all my pieces cut. This is the strap connector piece. I'm just going to do one long piece and then cut it in half. And this is 3 by 14 inches. I have my center band, which is 4 by 18. Again, ready to cut, nothing on the back. I have my 2 lining pieces, which I showed you how to make the pattern changes for that. Okay, I'm not putting any pockets or anything in this. You certainly can if you would like. And then I have my main pieces that are cut, and I also have my stiffener or stabilizer glued on the back. Now you can see here I am using leather today, so I do have some Salpa stiffener on here. And of course, like I said, on the back of these pieces, there is nothing. So we're going to start out by going ahead and dealing with these 2 pieces. And we're going to treat this just like we would faux leather. We're going to draw a line down the center of each piece, and we're going to put some double-sided tape. Now these pieces are only going to be folded 1 time. So we're not going to fold and then fold again. We're just going to fold 1 time. So as I draw these lines in and put the double-sided tape on, I'm actually going to put double-sided tape right on the line itself and then fold the long edges into the center. So these are, you know, very much like how we typically do handles or something similar. So for both of these pieces, we are going to fold these long edges into the center. Now, again, of course, I'm using leather, but the leather that we carry in this particular hide is 0.8 millimeters, and therefore it is very thin. It's just like essentially working with faux leather as far as thickness-wise. And so I'm going to treat it as such. All right, so I have that piece folded. I'm going to fold this other piece. Whoops, if I don't lose it first. And I'm folding to the center, making sure I don't pull on the leather as I fold. Just laying it down. And then we're going to stitch down both sides, both long edges. Okay, So I'm going to go ahead and stitch, and I'm going to use my edge guide. I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Want to make sure this is really pretty. This is the band that's going in the front, so again, you just want to make sure it looks really nice. So thread color wise, this was really a hard color to match, and I ended up using an Amman thread. It is something you can get from Sunny Sewing Machine. It's a little bit lighter than I want it to be. I wish it was a little more vibrant and darker, but you know, you can only get what you can get. This is color 4443 if you are interested in you know, looking for something similar. And again, you can see it's not exact, but it's the closest I could get. Okay, once these are sewn, you're going to take your strap connector piece and you're going to fold it in half and then go ahead and cut it in half. Now, I'm assuming that most of you will be using faux leather, and what we're going to end up doing is folding these edges under, if you're using faux leather, and riveting them onto the bag. So if you are using leather, or if you're doing something a little bit different, maybe your leather's a little thick, then you can certainly cut a shape into this and, you know, do some stitching or something, and that way you can put the strap connector on that way. It's whatever you choose, however you want to do that. Okay, we're going to set these pieces aside. Well, I'm going to actually keep this piece out because I'm going to go ahead and put my magnetic snap on before I forget. So you're going to mark 1 1/4 inch down and centered and place a mark. And then right there is where you're going to go ahead and install your magnetic snap. Now you want to make sure, of course, that your magnetic snap is being installed on the right side of your piece, of your band piece, and you're going to, of course, put, you know, the female side on one and the other male side on the other. It's going to look strange because it's going to look like these are right sides together, but trust the process. Go ahead and install your magnetic snap and we'll move on. Okay, the magnetic snap is installed. Good to go. So we're going to go ahead and set this aside and work on the main part of the bag. And we're going to take our 2 main pieces and we are going to put them right sides together and wonder clip the bottom edge. Okay, so 2 main pieces, right sides together. We're going to wonder clip the bottom edge. And I got ahead of myself a little bit. I had to take my little sides out. So we're just going to roll with it, and I'm going to see if I can get in the same holes. One of those things. Got ahead of myself. Okay, so go ahead and stitch your bottom edge using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now you're going to open this up and we're going to top stitch this seam down. And that is important in this bag because you know, if you set this down, you want to make sure that it lays flat. And if you don't stitch the seam down, you have a tendency, the bag will have a tendency to kind of shift and not lay flat. So I'm just going to go ahead and top stitch 1/8 of an inch on each side of this seam. I'm going to reach in and make sure the seam is open. Okay, and I'm going to repeat on the other side of this seam to hold this down. Okay, so once that is top stitched, like you see here, now we can go ahead and fold this so the sides, or the main part of the bag, is right sides together. And we're going to wonder clip the sides in place. Okay, from here we're going to stitch the side edges down, of course using a 1/2 inch seam allowance again. Okay, from here we want to go ahead and make sure our sides stay open. So I'm going to put some double-sided tape right along the seam. I'm going to peel the backing off the tape and open this seam allowance. So I'll put the tape on both sides and then go through and of course just stick this down so that it lays nice and flat. So I'm going to repeat that for each part of the side seam and then we'll continue. Okay, so once the seams are opened up, all we're going to do is box these corners. Make sure you match up your bottom seam with your side seam, and we're going to stitch using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Whenever I do this part of the stitching, I always like to have the bag like facing up and then just fold it down and stitch. Instead of trying to stitch this way, it doesn't seem to want to usually lay as flat. I like to do it from this edge here. Okay, once those are stitched, go ahead and just trim these down to anywhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. Okay, I'm not going to turn the bag yet. I'm going to leave it this way because our lining's so short, we were not going to be able to put our lining on the other side of the bag like we typically do. So we're going to have to stick our lining inside here. So just at this point, set this aside. And take your lining pieces, and like I said, I'm not putting in any pockets because this is a short lining. If you want to do that, you certainly can. So all I'm going to do is to put these right sides together. And I'm going to stitch the sides first. And then I'm going to stitch a small portion of the bottom, but leave most of it open so I can turn the bag. And I'm going to go ahead and box my corners ahead of time. Since I don't have a zipper pocket to pull this through and finish the bag off, I'm going to have to just at the bottom go ahead and either do a whip stitch or stitch the bottom closed after the whole bag is done. And of course I'm going to do this at the 1/2 inch seam allowance like the rest. I'm going to start at a 1/2 inch. I'm probably going to make it slightly larger just to make sure that the lining fits nice. Okay, from here you can either go to the iron and open up the seams, or you can just kind of finger press these seams open. And then we're going to box the corners. So again, I'm matching the bottom seam to the side seam. And then I'm going to stitch. I didn't get all the way quite to the edge there, so I just went ahead and restitched. No reason to take that out. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And then, of course, just like before, with our main part of our bag, we're just going to cut the seam allowance back to anywhere between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so now that we have the lining and the main part of the bag completed, we're going to measure for the slit that we need to make. So basically what's going to happen is when this bag gets turned, this is going to come, I'm going to kind of simulate this for you. This is going to kind of come down like this. We don't have any stabilizer at the top because we want to be able to make sure that this kind of pleats down easily. And if we have stiffener or stabilizer up there, it's not going to happen, okay? So when you fold this over to the wrong side like I have here, you want to make sure that this is 4 inches. Because remember, we still have to stitch our lining on, and so we need to make sure we give ourselves enough room for that. And that's at 4, and that's at 4. Okay. So from here, again, I need to center my marks. So I'm going to find the center of the front and the back, and I'm just going to mark this with a silver marking pen. Okay, just put a little bit of just a little dot there. Okay, so now I know where my center is. So I want to cut the slit just above the stabilizer. Okay, so I can feel where that is, and if you're using, some kind of deckable heavy, deckable light, something like that, you're going to be able to feel where that is. It's going to be roughly, between 2 and 2.5 inches, somewhere in there. And I want to mark. You don't cut on your stabilizer, you're cutting just above it, and I'm going to mark a 2-inch line. Okay, just like that. And feeling where the stabilizer is. Just like that. Now, using either a rotary cutter or a craft knife, you can leave this folded, and you're going to cut from this point to this point. You're just going to go ahead and cut that slit right in. You can do that on this side. You can do the same thing on this side, and you're going through both this part and the main part of the bag. Okay? So I'm going to go to my cutting table to do that, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut that slit in. Okay, so I have the holes cut. You see there's one here, and I have one here. Okay? So they match up when I fold this over. And now what I'm going to do is take my lining, and I'm going to fold this so that it is right side out. And I'm going to stick it inside this main piece. Go ahead and line up side seams. And then we're going to wonder clip around the rest of the top of this bag, and then we're just going to stitch all the way around using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, the inspiration bag does not have any top stitching. And the reason why, I guess, is because it's more of a pleated thing. So we're actually not going to have to top stitch this. This is really a great bag for a domestic machine. Okay, so again, 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around. Okay, so now that that's sewn all the way around, I'm going to pull this out, and I am going to fold, I'm going to leave the seam like the leather facing up, okay? So your main kind of part of your bag is not going to bend. You're going to leave it straight. So the seam allowance is going to go towards your lining. And I am going to just kind of reach in here, and I'm going to top stitch all the way around on the lining itself. So that's going to be essentially our top stitching on the bag. It's going to be on the inside, but it's going to help hold that lining in place. And you can see I'm just kind of reaching in and pulling the lining nice and taut, making sure that it's nice and flat. Okay. So from here, we're going to go ahead and turn the bag. So for those of you who are going to be using leather or want to use leather for this bag and you have some stiffeners on hand, this is a 0.5 millimeter Salpa. I wouldn't go any heavier than that with this 0.8 millimeter leather. If anything, maybe just a tad bit lighter with the stiffener. It's whatever, whatever you prefer, but I would say you don't want this part to be super stiff. Okay. And then from here, we're just going to fold the bottom edge to the inside by ½ inch, and we're going to stitch. Now you can whip stitch this. You don't have to stitch this on your machine. I'm just going to stitch it on the machine for video purposes to get this done. And again, if you want to add a pocket so you don't see this, you can certainly do that. Okay, so from here, you're going to push the inside of the bag in. Now, you're not going to push it all the way down to the stabilizer. Remember, we're pushing it to about halfway so that our two actual slits match up. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of open this up, get the corners of the lining in, and then let the leather fold over itself and push this down. Okay, and now my slits match up on both ends, and we basically, have a pretty basic bag. Okay, now that I have my holes cut, I went ahead and put the lining back inside the bag. Okay, so everything is just, again, pretty basic bag here at this point. Everything's looking good. So what we're going to do now is to take our front band piece, and I'm going to place it through the holes. And I'm going to take the top of the piece and line it up with the top of the bag. I want the magnetic snap facing out. Okay, so I see the right side of the magnetic snap. And it doesn't have to be perfectly, don't worry about how far this is pulled through at this point. We're going to deal with the magnetic snap in just a minute. I'm going to take the other side of the band and I'm going to put it through the other hole. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and line it up with the top of the bag. So basically what I have right now, here's the band piece. It's just kind of down in here. We'll deal with it in just a minute. And what I'm going to do is just stitch the band piece to the main part of the bag on both sides. Now, I'm going to make sure, do the best I can not to overstitch. And I'm just going to, do about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Don't worry about this being a raw edge, the band being a raw edge, all that's going to be hidden. Okay, so I'm just going to cut a few rogue threads I have here and go ahead and stitch. I am going to back stitch because I want to make sure that it stays on, it doesn't pull off. Okay, so they're stitched on. I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, so now that that's stitched, what I'm going to do is take the band from the inside and I'm just going to pull it down, okay, so it kind of forms this pleat. I'm going to pull it down on the other side, do the same thing, so it kind of forms this pleat. And I'm going to take the band and I'm just going to fold it around to the right side of the bag. Just fold it all the way over. And then from here, I'm just going to kind of play with this area here. See if I can kind of get it to do what I want so that now the bag closes. Okay, and I've got this kind of pleated area here in the middle. Of course, we're going to put our strap connectors on the sides. And you can just kind of keep playing with this, getting the pleats how you like it. Like I want to have a kind of a second pleat here, so I'm going to pull this leather out here if I can. Okay, to kind of have more of a bow effect. And again, leather is going to hold its shape a little bit better than faux leather. But what I'm trying to do is just make sure that, I like the way this looks. Now, if you don't want this cinched down quite as much, what you would do is make your band a little bit longer, okay? So instead of 18 inches, you'd make it maybe, try with 19 or 20. Okay. And you can see it kind of has a little bit of a slouchy effect, a little bit of a different effect for sure. And of course the inspiration bag is done differently because basically the band is fed back through. However, unless we were going to hand stitch that on the inside of the bag, it's going to be very difficult to, get that to stay. Because if we basically cut the band off here and fed the band back through the slit that we have, there's really no good way to stitch that on. So I decided that I thought this was probably the best way to attack this. Okay, so from here, we want to go ahead and put our strap connectors on. Now, because I'm using leather, I have a lot of options here. I really could have cut like a shape in this and before I put it on. I'm going to show you how I did this on the faux leather bag, which what I did was folded the edge down like this so that you didn't see the raw edge, and then did the same thing, folded this edge down, and then folded this in half. I riveted that on, and then I stitched here. Now you can stitch here, you don't have to rivet it, but what you want to make sure is that you don't go beyond your stiffener or your stabilizer, which I can feel here. You also want to make sure you don't put any rivets or cut any holes in your side seam, or if you did decide to quilt it, you don't punch any holes in your quilting. And this is where I ran into a problem with the quilting on the original bag that I had done, is that I was punching holes and it was going right through my quilting and I was having problems. So if you're going to do a quilting design, make sure you do something that gives yourself a lot of space so you're not cutting your quilting. You're not cutting your actual quilting stitches. So there's a couple ways you can do this. Basically, we want to make 2 holes here. So we have these brand new rulers that just came out this week. You've got a curved corner option, which is this one here, and we also have a box corner option. The reason why I'm grabbing my curved corner option is because this is a 1.5 inch strap connector, and I have a double rivet placement here. The box corner has a single rivet placement on the 1.5 inch section. Now you see on these rulers, you have got placement lines for your strap. So you have these dotted lines going down each side. You're going to place your strap right there in the middle of those 2 lines. And since I want to do a 1/4 inch, I'm just going to go ahead and line the edge of the strap up on the 1.25, and then I'm going to mark in the 1 inch holes. I'm going to do that both strap connectors and both edges. Now these rulers have got a non-slip back on them. So, when you move this, you see this is not, the strap's not coming off of this, okay? I mean, I have to really pull to make that happen. It's got a really great non-slip back. It's called Fabric Gripping Action. And then I'm going to take my punch and I'm going to go ahead and punch holes on each of my marks. And of course you want to make sure you don't punch holes on your stitching. Okay, from here I'm going to fold these edges up, and I'm going to fold them up right at a 1/2 inch. Now you can do a couple things. You could theoretically go ahead and put a little bit of double-sided tape to help you hold this. You could stitch, although if you stitch you're going to see it on the outside. So what I suggest is to go ahead and just fold that up, mark through these holes where your second set of holes need to go. All right, so I'm just going to fold it up 1/2 inch. Hole and hole. Okay, so let's go ahead and punch these. Now the great thing about this cobalt color, of course it's a spring trend. We saw that last week. Cobalt is huge, and you could really put almost any hardware color with this. The gunmetal looks amazing, but I also think that nickel looks great and bronze. So really any color you want to put with it is perfect. Now from here, you can either use rivets or you can use Chicago screws, whichever works best for you. And I'm going to use these screw back O-rings. These are 1.5 inch screw back O-rings. This fits in here great. And we'll be able to put these on after we rivet everything onto our bag. So for rivets, for this particular bag, I used 12 millimeter. So what I'm going to do first is to put a couple of rivets in through these holes. Just kind of help me keep them folded. Okay, make sure they're even. And then look at the placement here. Okay, so I don't want too much of the strap connector sticking up. I mean, granted, we are going to stitch it up here, and that's optional. You don't necessarily have to if you don't think your machine is going to go through it. But I really want to get it right above where the stabilizer is. So the best way to do that is going to be to just, you can either put a little bit of silver marking pen on your rivets. That snap is strong. Or you can, especially with leather, you could just go ahead and depress these down and it'll make a little mark in your leather, and you can see where those holes need to be punched, right there and right there. So I'm going to punch through those holes. Now, when you do this, you are going all the way through to the back side, and you're also going to be on this leather part, okay? It's not going to be so far down that you're on your lining. You should be nowhere near where the lining and the main part of the bag meet. Now, there's so many different kind of strap connectors, or you could certainly do something with the shape here. There's a lot of free patterns out there for strap connectors. What I'm going to do is push this through, and then I'm going to fold this over, make sure my end is folded under. Do one edge first, put the cap on, and then I'll do the other. Okay, and then I'll do this side. Okay, so that's what the strap connector is going to look like. You can see it's right up here against the top of the bag. I'll be able to slide this O-ring right on, and if it gathers a little bit, it's okay, because that's kind of the look of the bag. So I'm going to repeat that process to get the other strap connector on, and then I'll go ahead and set these rivets. Okay, have the rivets set. I went ahead and put my bag tag on here, and now we need to put the O-rings on. If you would like, and if your machine can handle it, you can go ahead and stitch right across this strap connector so that the O-ring doesn't fall, okay? I'm not sure. I did that on the first bag that I went through and did. I'm going to kind of see how the O-ring behaves on this before I commit to stitching that. So I'm just going to go ahead and take these little screws out, slide this in, put it back. Now, if you're using a chain, which I'm going to do, I'm going to have to put my chain through this as well. But before I do all that, I just want to see how this is going to do. So essentially what it would do is kind of help it stand up. But you know, it's doing pretty good on its own. And if it does come down a little bit, I don't think that's not going to bother me. So I think I'm going to forego doing that. However, if you'd like to, just go ahead and stitch right across here. You know, put your O-ring on, kind of measure and make sure you give yourself enough space, and then take it back off and then stitch. I probably wouldn't stitch with it on just to make sure you don't have any issues. Okay, I'm going to get my chain, and then we're going to take a look at this bag in the camera, in the front camera. So I hope you enjoyed watching and sewing along. We're going to take a quick look at the bag. We're going to switch to the overhead and show you this version. So this is the version that I made in the video. Now, you'll notice that this version is not quilted, and I did that on purpose. When I actually made the original bag, the original version, I quilted it thinking, oh, that's going to be so pretty. But what I found out is when I started to make slits for all of these different areas here and also to put the rivets on, I was cutting my quilting stitches. So I actually suggest not quilting the bag, or if you do quilt, make it a very large quilting pattern so you can kind of get around those stitches. The bag, of course, is different because it has a band going all the way around, okay, versus just being right here at the top. The only way that I could really figure to achieve that was going to be to do some hand stitching here, which of course we try to stay away from as much as possible. The side of the bag, of course, we have our strap connectors here. This is real leather, and even though it is real leather, I went ahead and tucked the edges under. Again, you can do this in so many different ways. You could certainly make a different kind of strap connector with some kind of shape involved, edge coat the sides, so many different ways to achieve this. For hardware, of course, I used our new large chunky chain. We do have this for sale on the website in bronze, nickel, and gunmetal. I used some O-rings. These are the spring gate O-rings that are actually the screw-in. Okay, so we have little screws here to make sure that they stay nice and secure. And once I get them on, I just kind of turn that to underneath. And we have a magnetic snap. And inside the bag, I have it very plain. Okay, so the inside is no pockets. You know, nothing fancy. This is really just an evening bag, something that you take to go with you for a dinner somewhere, you know, something fancy. And then you can kind of play with the little pleats here and kind of pleat them out however you want. Now, I am really excited to see your version of these bags. You are so talented when it comes to making bags, and one of the things I really loved about the last sew along is for about the first half hour we talked about how you could change the bag up. So I can't wait to hear your ideas in the sew along. Don't forget to sign up for it if you want to make either this version or Nova's version. We'll be doing them both live on Zoom, and that's next Wednesday, and again the link is below. So before we move on to Artistry Avenue, I want to mention one more thing that I am really excited about. I've been working a while on new rulers. So we're going to go to the overhead and I'm going to show you these rulers. We have got these new, and I know they're a little hard to see because they are rulers, but I made sure to leave them in the package. We've got a curved corner ruler and we have a new box corner ruler. Now, these rulers are actually 6-in-1 tools. And what that means is, for instance, on this curved corner ruler, we have a 1 inch, a 1.5 inch, a 2 inch, and a 2.5 inch curve. So depending on what your pattern is, you can certainly lay this down on the fabric and you can cut it out easily. The other thing that this ruler does for you is you have a double rivet placement for straps. So whether you're using a 1 inch strap or a 1.5 inch strap, you can go ahead and place this tool on the strap, mark where your rivets go, and then go ahead and punch your holes. Now our rulers go all the way down to 7 inches. So if you're making something like the talise or a bag that you're maybe using rivets as accents, you don't have to continually move your ruler every 3 inches or 4 inches. We have a full 7 inches worth of rivet holes on the curved corner ruler. Same thing on the box corner ruler. We also have 7 inches worth of rivet holes. The rivet holes here are for a 1 inch strap and a 1.5 inch strap, and it is a single rivet hole. So you have one hole down the center of each strap, depending on whether you're using the 1 or the 1.5 inch. Then, of course, we have the box corners. We have 1 inch, 1.5 inch, a 2 inch, and a 2.5 inch box corner. So I'm going to demonstrate quickly how to use these rulers because I want to show you how simple it is, especially when you're making a box corner. These rulers are definitely a time saver. Okay, so I have some faux leather here and I have the rulers. The other thing I want to mention on these rulers is it does have the fabric gripping action on the back. And so once you lay this ruler down, it's not going to move. You see here the entire piece of fabric moves here. The ruler's not slipping off the fabric. Now this works, of course, with any rotary cutter. However, whenever you do curved corners, usually the smaller the rotary cutter, the better it is. So I'm going to take my 45 millimeter cutter here, and all you're going to need to do is to line up each edge of your bag with the edge of the ruler. So I'm going to cut 2 inches here. You can see I've got the ruler lined up on this side. I have the ruler lined up here on this side. And I'm just going to take my rotary cutter. And I'm going to go all the way around this. And once I do, you will see I have a nice 2-inch corner cut. Okay, super easy. Now, box corner, same type of thing. What you're going to do with this is you're going to line one edge of the ruler up with the side of the bag, one edge of the ruler up with the bottom of the bag. And then once you do that, you're going to be able to just use a rotary cutter to cut in. Now, the great thing about this ruler is you can either use your 45 millimeter or you can use your 60 millimeter rotary cutter. Either one works great with these box corners. Not all rulers are that way. So all I'm going to do is go ahead and cut in. It does have the extra slot here so that you can cut all the way until your blade ends and you don't have to worry about overcutting. You also don't have to worry about your cut being too short. You can see how easy they came apart, and that is with the 60 millimeter ruler or 60 millimeter rotary cutter. If we want to use the 45, it works just as well. I'm just going to move this ruler over a bit. And I'm going to pick up my 45 millimeter rotary cutter. I'm going to go ahead and cut to the point where my blade stops. And then you will see, well, my rotary cutter didn't cut over here, but you can see the corners come out perfect each time. So again, this works great with the 45 millimeter or the 60 millimeter. We have wonderful fabric gripping action on both of these rulers. You can cut curved corners, you can cut box corners. You have 6 different tools in one with these rulers, and they are on sale now on our website. The rulers are $45.99 each, or if you would like to buy 2, basically one of each kind, we do have a special where you can get them for $85.99. So of course the package is better to buy 2 of them together. You get everything you need and you save a little bit of money. So now it's time for Artistry Avenue. Every week we choose 3 bags that were posted in the Simply Classic bag making community on Facebook or that were emailed to share@simplyclassic.net. If we feature your bag, you'll get a free PDF pattern of your choice. You have 30 days to email share@simplyclassic.net to let us know which pattern you would like. So now let's take a look at this week's artists. So Cindy made 3 Simply Classic clutches for her granddaughter to carry to her senior prom. Cindy said that her granddaughter is having a custom dress made and she has 3 beautiful custom bags to choose from as well. So I'm super excited to find out which one of these she picks. They are all absolutely gorgeous. Lona made our newest pattern, the Talise, and I love this. She used upcycled denim and leather pieces that she had left over from another project, and she added side seams to make installing the rivets a little easier. I love mixing materials in the rivets that she used. This is an amazing bag. And one thing about the Talise is it can either be this is more of a casual version of it, or you can really make it a very upscale version as well. I love this. And then Fenny made this Roseanne using cork. She lengthened and narrowed the handles, and the cork makes it so they stand upright without any extra stabilizer. Isn't that amazing? She also used a very cute heart-shaped turn lock on the flap, and of course the Roseanne is perfect for that. This is really a beautiful bag, especially for spring. So thank you to our featured artists, Cindy, Lona, and Fenny, for sharing your amazing makes. Don't forget to email share@simplyclassic.net within the next 30 days to let us know which pattern you'd like. So before we wrap up, let's talk about our 2 giveaways. We're giving away 2 PDF patterns of your choice from the comments. So to enter, leave your first name and someone you'd like to see as a guest co-host on a Simply Classic double stitch sew along. It may be somebody you follow on YouTube or a bag maker you admire. So let me know and I'll randomly select 2 winners on next week's episode. So thank you so much for joining me this evening for the Bag Makers Workroom. Make sure you join us next Thursday, February 26th at 7 p.m. for an episode about faux fur and hair on hide. Don't forget to submit your Simply Classic makes by posting them in the Simply Classic Facebook group or by emailing share@simplyclassic.net. And please remember to click that thumbs up button on your way out. Until next time, everybody, happy sewing.